Hello, loves. Hello, hello. Hilt here from the blue flame. Oh, wow. This energy, all of this creational, magical, elemental energy that we have been navigating as we're moving through this lunar priestess eclipse wormhole is really something, isn't it? Whew. We have now come through the black Virgo new moon, that one that we had in August. We have come through the total lunar eclipse in Pisces. We have come through 2 days later the 999 portal, and over in Circle, I facilitated a really powerful Scarlet Temple activation and frequency transmission, and there will be a link below. It is available to anyone who is called to experience this elemental alchemy, and you are most well invited to it. You can see the grid behind me here was part of that, actually. Today, what we are here to talk about and really to introduce for us is an energy that first came through as Saturn made its first ticklings into the sign of Pisces, and we came through an Aldebaran silver gateway. So Saturn came into Pisces in March of 2023, stayed there until May of 2023, tickled back into Aquarius, and then tickled on back into Pisces. And we've been navigating this realm of Saturn and Pisces, this new foundations of flow state, new relationships between karma and dharma, new relationships between how we found what we build upon and our transcendent spiritual natures. Okay? Now, just a couple of days ago, Saturn backtracked from Aries back into the 29 degree of Pisces. Saturn's going to spend the rest of this year in Pisces, moving backwards, going to make it all the way back to, I believe, the 23rd degree of Pisces. However, as we come into the Virgo Blue Moon, that 29 degree Virgo new moon that is also a small solar eclipse, a very powerful one at that, we will find the sun and moon, that new moon energy, directly across the wheel from this retrograde Saturn. So all of these energies that we have been moving through for the last couple of years are coming up to a head. And we now, as we move between the full moon in Pisces, that lunar eclipse, and that new moon in Virgo that will happen the day before the equinox, the Libra equinox, at the 29 degree of Virgo on the 20th, 21st. We are really getting to release, to shed, as the moon moves from full to darkness into that void point of the new moon. We are being gifted an opportunity to connect with all of those things within us that are limiting us, to connect to those places where we have built our identity, our spirituality on faulty foundations, where we are clinging to old dogmas like a life preserver, when letting go and allowing flow would be in better service to the all of our being and the all of sentience. As we move through this week, we also have the final of 3 Cazimis, conjunctions between the Sun and Mercury, the messenger. Now, this final conjunction, let's give a little replay if we can, just quickly for a moment. The first one happened before Mercury's retrograde on the 11th of July at 4 degrees of Leo. The second one happened during Mercury's retrograde on the 31st of July, 1st of August, depending on where you exist on this planet, at 9 degrees of Leo. This one is occurring on the 13th of September at 20 degrees of Virgo with Mercury direct. Mercury left that retrograde shadow, is fully in the sign of its rulership, Virgo, coming in to meet the Sun just as they both, first the Sun, then Mercury, pass directly through the South Node. And this is bringing us into contact again with those places where we have been expressing ourselves from old patterns, old beliefs. And if we remember that the Virgo South Node is, let's feel how we want to talk about this in this moment. Karmic beliefs that we need an intermediator between ourselves and the divine, rather than the truth, which is that we are all divine. We are communing and communicating with all of us and with the all universe. So here we feel that dogmatic energy again. We're releasing old fears about what it means to step into our whole state of spiritual beingness, that transcendent energy of Pisces. The next day, on the 14th of September, we will experience what is known as third quarter moon. This moon will happen in the sign of Gemini. You also know it as the half moon, right? On the 14th of September at exactly 3:33 a.m. in the Pacific time zone. Gotta love those numbers. The third quarter moon will reach the 21st degree of Gemini, and the Sun, Mercury, and the South Node opposite the North Node will be creating a T-square here with the moon. Now, this energy helps us to continue the shedding. From this moment on, we start to enter what is known as the darkening phase of the moon. We will still be able to see Luna in the night and day skies. Those times. Oh, let's feel how this wants to play. The moon will be most visible during this phase. In the blue hours of dawn. The blue hours of dawn. So we can feel how we're coming into an energy of the dawning of the new. Now I understand why it wanted me to say, why the divine, why my higher self, why the all universe wanted me to say it will be most visible in the blue hour of dawn. We are experiencing the dawning of the new. As we come through that solar eclipse on the 21st, we will move through the portal of this lunar priestess eclipse wormhole, emerging on the other side. And what do we call into that other side? What have we eclipsed out? What have we released? What are we bringing into this new? So I said that this update, which is also very much an update, right, of the energies that are available right now, is also an introduction. Because as I mentioned, when Saturn began the journey in this Piscean energies back in 2023, a channeling came through that I shared during the Aldebaran Silver Gateway portal. Now, if you aren't familiar with the Aldebaran Silver Gateway, Aldebaran is a stellar dimension that is known as a entry point for human earthly incarnations. So the soul comes through and it's like a conjunction point as the soul is waiting to birth onto the earthly plane. So can you feel how this dawning energy is also in there, in that? And now the channeling that came through has to do with the shifting of timelines. And it is a deep dive into what it means to be a timeline shifter, some of the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual experiences of this nature of the timeline shifter, and what it really means to be working the timelines, what we're doing when we're working the timelines. Another reason that it feels so important for me to share this remastered version of this update with you all now is that Uranus and Sedna have just gone retrograde, both of them together at the first degree of Gemini. And Neptune is sextile them both, retrograde at the first degree of Aries. And they are all three basically. Sedna moves much slower, so maybe not her, but Uranus and Neptune are both going to move into the 29 degree of the sign that they just emerged out of together, basically. Kind of at the same time, right around the end of October, beginning of November. This is also when Jupiter's going to go retrograde in the sign of Cancer. So there is a lot of momentum for inward introspective journeying and really feeling what it feels like deep within the being, within your being, to navigate these new energies. Because next year, 2026, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus will all move back into these signs, Aries and Gemini, and they will stay there for the duration. They're not going to retrograde back in again to Pisces or Taurus. We start the new. And this is a time for experiencing deep within your being. It's not forward momentum outside of self. It is inward, experiential energy. So without any further ado, first to say, I will have another update where we really deep dive into that Virgo Blue Moon solar eclipse energies and the equinox in a few days. For now, may I present to you timeline shifting to unity consciousness with so much and many loves, as always, in the always, in the dimensions of the all and beyond, beyond. We're getting ready for the soul, our star, the sun, making its annual conjunction with Aldebaran, the Silver Gateway. We're gonna start there. We're gonna start there. However, where I've been shown that we're going in this particular transmission of frequency is beyond the beyond. So if you're driving a car or you're doing something where you need your conscious mind alert, it might be a good time to pull over or say, I'm going to take this into the bedroom, or I'm going to take this into the office, or I'm going to take this into the closet. Somewhere where you can allow the energy to really flow through you and to take you out of the day-to-day. Take you out of the day-to-day. A lot of times, because this is part of my unique template, what I'm helping us to do is to bring these very high frequency, these very, sometimes I call it high esoterica or abstract concepts into embodied form. This is part of what I do in the world. This one, it feels like we're going to get as close as we can to being able to bring it into embodied form. Part of that, let's feel here. Part of that feels like the whole point of the transmission is to find the ways in which you can cycle through it. And you may want to listen to this particular one a few times. And through that, kind of like a funnel, start bringing it more and more and more into your day-to-day state of beingness. So one of the ways that we're going to kind of expand out from our heart space, up and out into the places that we're going, is through Aldebaran. Aldebaran is a star in Gemini. It is one of the 4 royal stars. It's called the Silver Gateway. And this is because it is one of the portals that souls pass through on their way to earthly incarnations. It's one of the train stations. I often see it as trains. So like Arcturus is the Grand Central Station, right? That stellar dimension is where the Akashic records are held. It's where we kind of do our life planning and do our life reviews. It holds that frequency. It holds that frequency. Aldebaran is one of the connectors. It's one of those dimensions where we've had our life planning. This is where we stop as we get ready. It's the holding zone while we wait for our mother's womb to be ready for that exact moment that we have decided that we will be born in order to have our unique blueprint perfectly laid out in the heavens for us. And this is regardless of whether or not it was a 25-hour labor or a 2-minute labor, whether or not they don't use forceps anymore, but they used to. They have to pull you out, or it's a cesarean and it's timed down to the minute because your mom says, we're going in and this is when you're going to be born. She thinks she's saying it. And she is. It's a contract between both of you. So, however you come into your embodied form as a soul, Aldebaran is the stellar dimension. It's one of the gateways to earthly incarnation. When the sun conjuncts with Aldebaran, which it's going to do on between the 28th and the 1st of June. the 28th of May and the 1st of June is when that'll be exact. It makes it a really powerful time to rewrite the birth contract, Feel into that. A lot of us hold trauma from the way that we were birthed into the world. For myself, it's that forceps, right? It was a very, very long labor. I think it was something like 12 and a half hours that my mom was in active labor. And they finally used forceps to pull me out because I was born in the 70s and they were still doing that then. So when I have gone in to rewrite my birthing story, to rebirth myself, I go into a meditation where I take myself back into the womb. Any traumas that I experienced while I was in there, if something happened to my mother, to the vessel of my vessel, while I was there, anything that may have come down the line from when she was in the vessel of her vessel, when she was in her mother's womb, all of these things, we have the capacity to rewrite them, to bring them into a state of, I want to use the word healing, but I also don't want to use the word healing. When we rebirth ourselves, what we are in effect doing is helping clear out old trauma associated. So changing the set and setting from a sterile hospital room and a surgical procedure to a home birthing might be a way that you feel called to do this. There's crystals everywhere and candles lit. Parents and grandparents and godparents and angels and all of these beings around holding space, celebrating your birth. That could be one of the ways that you rewrite your birth story. And to allow it to be a meditation, to say, how am I called to enter this embodied form? And let your heart open and show you all of those ways in which you can rebirth yourself. It's interesting. I said that this was going to be the the easy entry in. And it is, because what we're actually going to be talking about the way that, and there's been a little song, the way that it's been coming in for me, timeline shifting to unity consciousness. Timeline shifting to unity consciousness. And I want to leave those words hanging there for a moment. Timeline shifting to unity consciousness. Let us feel that for a minute. What does that mean in your heart? What do you feel when you hear those words together? In the last update, as we were getting ready for the Taurus new moon that just happened, I shared that I felt a very, very massive timeline shift as we were emerging out of the Scorpio full moon eclipse. A lot of information has been coming in since then. A lot of information has been coming in since then. And more people that I'm talking to seem to have felt this also. They felt that there was a massive shift, and part of what they're feeling as this new integrates, as this new integrates, I'm going to leave it at that, is a unification is happening. A unification is happening. In the latest newsletter, I talked about a car accident that I was in when I was 18. This is how we're going to go into this energy. I'm not going to retell the entire story. There will be a link below if you want to dive in more deeply to the energies astrologically and energetically of this current cycle until the new moon on the 3rd with the cosmic light drops. The car accident itself, it was pretty intense, and there are half a dozen very obvious ways in which I could have died. Very obvious. When we explore string theory or quantum theory in physics, every decision, every possible decision, every time you come to a crossroads, both of those split. And the path that you consciously take, you keep walking. And then there's a split, and the path that you didn't take creates a whole nother universe. Creates a whole nother universe. Feel into that. Like I mentioned in this car accident, there were 6 very obvious ways in which I could have died. And that's just the very obvious ones. And then there's all of the other possible things. And I'm giving us a really big example so that we can start to feel how sometimes it helps to have a big idea so that we can start to get it into the granular. One of the things that I have felt very often is an ability to touch in. Like since I was 18 and this car accident happened, I've had multiple opportunities to touch in and hear, oh, you did die. Like here's the timeline where it ends here. Here's the timeline where it ends here. And my conscious mind will go, no, I'm right here. I'm right here. Now let's take it down to a very, very small decision. If we can see that there are 6 obvious possible universes out there where that was where my timeline ended, then there's all of the other ones, including this one where I'm sitting here right now talking to you, where I didn't, and all of the forks that those made. So then today, I walked out of my house. I talked to my neighbor for a few minutes. And I told him, I'm going to go get a rose vanilla latte. And I walked and meandered, and I took this street or I took that street. I let my heart guide me as I made my way to this coffee shop that I like. And then as I was approaching the coffee shop, it was, am I staying or am I going? I brought my to-go cup, but am I actually going to get it for here and sit? It's a beautiful sunny day. We haven't had many of those in San Francisco recently. Even as I was sitting there talking to the person who was going to make my coffee, the barista, am I staying or am I going? And it was one of those decisions. It felt monumental, even though really it's the type of decision we make every moment, right? Am I going to turn here or am I going to turn there? Am I going out for a walk, or am I going to stay home? Am I going to watch this TV program or that one? Like all of these little decisions. So there's a timeline where I sat there and I drank my coffee. There's probably a bazillion timelines where I didn't go anywhere, where I stayed home, where I recorded this an hour earlier, where I didn't even record this. So can we feel now how big it all is? How many possible timelines there are? Because this is just my decisions. These are just the ones that I've made. And then how I interact with the different people based on those. Each one of those people that I interact with, including all of you who are watching this video right now, have a million different ways in which your decisions create new timelines and new universes through that. That's quantum theory. Now, if we look at Schrodinger's cat is the hypothetical mathematical equation that puts a cat in a box and then tries to solve, is the cat alive or dead, based on external factors that influence the cat in the box. And no matter what calculations they use, the cat is always both dead and alive at the same time. And this brings me back to that car accident, right? Every possible possibility exists. That's quantum theory. So feeling into this concept of every single possibility exists. We're going to go to samsara now. In Buddhist tradition, we reach nirvana or samsara when we have attained enlightenment. One of the ways in which the Buddha talked about it, or at least has been interpreted as having talked about it, is that from this place, you can see all of the possible timelines. All of the possible timelines. And through that ability of seeing all of the possible timelines, you're able to heal them back down the line. Heal them back down the line. So what does that mean? Are you changing the past? Are you saying, I'm healing this ancestral line, and this ancestral line has massive abuses of power? I'm just going to go with that. Massive abuses of power. So as I move into my state of being able to heal that trauma down my ancestral line, are you then taking everything that anyone in your ancestral line ever did that was an abuse of power and erasing it from the story of humanity, of this earthly timeline? Not really. Not in the, it's not like the history books are changing from your conscious knowing. This is where things are going to really start to get interesting. So one of the things that I have been experiencing personally over the last couple of weeks, really the last year, is this massive pain on my right side, my neck in particular. Now, when I got into that car accident when I was 18, not a short time ago, they kept telling me, oh no, don't move, don't move, don't move. Your neck might be broken. It was not. There wasn't really anything wrong with my neck at all. I actually hardly got hurt in this car accident, even though it was really intense and I skidded down a freeway as I was catapulted out of a VW bus. What has, and I didn't have neck problems for all of those years since that car accident. One of the things that's come in is that my physical body is actually readjusting, clearing through my physicality those other timelines. Okay, this is where it gets really hard to hold. So, what has been shown to me is some of us are timeline shifters. We have, as part of our light worker template, the work that we do, the service work that we do while in this earthly plane, is a sort of shamanic journeying, a dreamtime journeying, where mostly in the dreamtime, but some of us do it in conscious meditation states also, we're called into the network of timelines to repair breaches, to pull out old knots and rewire everything. I've talked about it before as the singular timeline being stretched out like a loom to repair the old damage. One of the pieces that has been really, really loud for me is part of this is actually, it's not just the single universe in which our soul currently inhabits that we're bringing into a state of unification. Part of what we're doing right now, part of this ascension journey, as we like to call it, this enlightenment journey, part of what all of this timeline shifting is for. Some of us are doing this on a collective level. That's service contract. That's the big picture. All of us in our incarnation, as we start on this journey, this awakening path, is transmuting the shadows, the old debris of the no longer active timelines would be a way to feel into that. As you are transmuting past life, karmic, ancestral, current incarnation trauma, all of this shadow work that we, as we call it, as you are going in and alchemizing all of this through your system, releasing the old cords. You know, we do a lot of cord cutting meditation when we're on this path. And part of the reason for that is because we're plugged in to so many things that we don't need to be plugged into anymore. As we release those cords, we're also releasing all of the timelines that are no longer, the word valid is coming in, but I don't like it. No longer true. They're no longer true. The way that we have thought about unity consciousness, a lot of people anyways, and have been taught about unity consciousness. Sometimes it comes in, it's like, ooh, hive mind and scary. A lot of times the way that it comes through when I'm feeling into what unity consciousness means is the ability to be telepathically or to feel the interconnectedness of all of us in a tangible and embodied way. So whether that's telepathic communication or just that moment when you know that your mom is about to call you. Like, oh, I felt you. And then your phone rings, right? So the thing that I was shown yesterday that I've been processing through for the last couple of weeks and was finally given a clear enough picture that I'm able to come on here and share it with you all now, is all of this work, everything that we're doing, whether you're a timeline shifter for the collective and for yourself, whether it's something that you're doing as part of your service contract for your family line, it is your journey, however you're doing it, is we are clearing out and reconnecting all of these timelines, all of the splits that have occurred because we were not consciously making our decisions. All of the splits that occurred because we were not consciously making our decisions. I'm going to say that one more time. All of the splits that occurred because we were not consciously making our decisions. The reason I said that 3 times is because we have free will on this planet. We will always have free will on this planet. That is part of the miracle of this embodied existence that is the Earth Project. We will always have free will. However, as this timeline unification comes in, as we wake up more and more, and as the earth plane is vibrating through the 4th dimension into the 5th dimension, and we along with her are moving into that space beyond time, connecting to that space beyond time while we're in embodied form, holding that higher frequency would be another way to feel into this. It's not that free will goes away or that decisions don't have consequences, i.e., the choice that you make splits off. It's that for more and 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 more of us, more and 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 more of the time, the choice that we make in each moment is so perfectly aligned to our true soul path, to our true calling, that it does not cause a split. So when we feel into unity consciousness and we feel into timeline shifting, we allow ourselves to explore this idea, this thought experiment, this high esoteric knowing, this truth, perhaps, that what we are doing as we wake up to our truest soul calling is timeline shifting to unity consciousness. And as we make these transformations and these transitions, we are able to come into a state of beingness that does not fracture the timeline anymore. Let's feel for a minute. I can feel that there's one more piece that wants to drop in, and I want to take that moment. Of course, if you would like a guide on your soul path journey, come click the link below. I would love to hold a torch at your crossroads. Journey the Acacia and your unique birth map with you. Help you navigate. You can request a consult. We'll meet together for 30 minutes or so, mini light activation and exploration, see where our soul contracts might intersect. Last year, when the sun met with Aldebaran, I recorded and posted here on YouTube an energy update and a meditation. I'm going to link that below also, and it'll be end capped to this video as well, so that you can work with that meditation if you're called. And that's where we're going. We're going to this idea of initial incarnation mapping. When we build our unique birth map in those life planning sessions, in that stellar dimension of Arcturus, we take into account our free will, the free will of all of the various people that we contract with to have interactions with in each moment, like my downstairs neighbor, who I said I'm going to get a rose vanilla latte to, that helped me cement that into the occasion that I would be going to Marigold Coffee and getting a rose vanilla. You see how little it can be? All of this is taken into account in this massive interdimensional blueprint. It is complex work to bring all of this information into, sometimes people like to call it the highest timeline. You'll hear, especially in sci-fi and like Marvel movies and comic books, was the darkest timeline, was the highest timeline. And the reason that these things exist in our movies, just like Everything Everywhere All at Once, is because they are a deep knowing within each and every one of us that these things occur, that these things exist. And part of the nowness, is that we are letting the old, those quote unquote darkest timelines fall away, incorporating the true aspects of them into our wholeness, and from that space navigating a unified field, a unified timeline. So there's a lot of timeline shifters currently incarnate on this planet, just like there's a lot of messengers. Talked about how it's all hands on deck. We are moving into this plane in a very, very powerful way. right now? Okay. I'm being guided to say you may be noticing this in your physicality. Remember, I talked about my neck. You may also be noticing it in your dream time. And this is true whether you're a timeline shifter or not, because this is something that is each and every one of us is doing for our individual soul. Each and every one of us is doing this for our individual soul. So you may be noticing that you're having dreams about conversations that you had like 20 years ago, 10 years ago, reliving, like seemingly reliving mundane events in your life in your dream time. And they feel very real. Part of this is that's part of what you're doing, is clearing that out. And maybe you wake up in the morning and you just feel like you need to shake a little bit. This is one of the reasons that when I come back from my night's sleep, one of the first things that I do is I call all aspects of myself back into oneness. And I also often will work with the violet flame. I'll call the violet flame up. I'll call the blue flame out from my heart space, so that as I'm coming back into my beingness, into my wholeness, into my oneness, from all of that work that I was doing while I navigated the astral and causal planes and the dream time, I'm able to allow a purification. That's what the violet flame does, a purification of the debris, the astral debris, and come into a state of wholeness and love. That's the blue flame, emerging from the heart space and kind of clearing up everything and bringing it back into wholeness and beingness, into loveness. Writing your dreams down, journaling about these decision points, these choice points that are coming up. A lot of it in this next couple of months, we're entering a season of a lot of, like, this is going to be speeding up. So places where you made decisions, where you have a pattern that you've been locked into, are going to keep coming in, asking for your attention. This could be a relationship pattern. For me, it's like this idea of being gaslit, like constantly trying to engage with someone who does not actually want to engage with me, but who sometimes does, but then disappears and then comes back, and disappears and comes back. But that's one of mine. So I got to play with that over this last week and feel where it's something that's true and where it's something that's not true. I had 2 people come in to let me play this game. And one of them was, this is where it needs to fall away. And one of them was, this is where it's still clean. This is not that thing. This is that thing. And sometimes you'll be given 2 very similar seeming ways to work with this energy, so that you can start to feel true, not so true, true, not so true, true, not so true. And I keep hearing the words of a friend of mine, you can't fuck this up. Which is also true. Like, as these choice points are coming in for you, it's not, oh shit, I made the wrong one, game over. I mean, unless it's a life-ending decision, which hopefully you're not experiencing that right now, unless that's exactly where you're meant to go. Usually life-ending decisions are on purpose. Whew. but these decision points, these places where a family member or a friend, a decision whether or not to have a certain type of food or go to a fast food restaurant and watch this program or that program, these choice points come in to help you navigate your internal compass and so that you can find your true north point more often.